As we head into Thanksgiving week here in the US, gratitude is on many of our minds. But in midlife, it becomes more than a seasonal theme. It's a powerful tool for reconnecting to ourselves, calming the nervous system, and finding meaning in the midst of change. Today's guest, Dr. Deepti Gandhi, brings both scientific insight and deep compassion to this topic. She walks us through what's happening in the brain when we practice gratitude, how it supports our emotional well-being during perimenopause and menopause, and how even the simplest practices can create real shifts. And do stay with us through the full conversation because Dr. Gandhi guides us in a gratitude practice that truly shifted everything for me. It's accessible, research-backed, and something you can start today. Welcome back to Pleasure in the Pause, the podcast dedicated to inspiring midlife women to connect to their bodies, pleasure, and power in perimenopause, menopause, and beyond. I am your host, Gabriella Espinosa, and it is my pleasure to be here with you. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Deepti Gandhi, a board-certified family medicine physician, Menopause Society certified practitioner, and personal development coach. With over 20 years of experience supporting women through the menopause transition, she brings a grounded, evidence-based perspective to this conversation. Together, we explore the science behind gratitude, the emotional shifts that often show up in midlife, how gratitude and pleasure are connected, and how to access that sense of appreciation even on the hard days. We also share some of our own personal gratitude practices, including small, meaningful ways to bring this into your daily life. Let's dive in. Welcome, Dr. Gandhi, to Pleasure in the Pause.
Thank you so much for having me, Gabriella. I'm so excited for our conversation today.
So am I. So let's start with your story. What drew you into menopause care and personal development coaching? I love that combination for a physician.
Thank you. In terms of the coaching, actually, a dear friend of mine is an executive coach, and she had been telling me, like, hey, listen, I think you'd be really good at this. I think you should do it. And this was years ago. And I, at the time, really didn't know what a coach was and what a physician coach was. And I did some digging. I did a little mini course and I had a taste. And I will tell you, Gabriella, I was like, there's no going back. I need coaching in my life. And then I had a coach. And I just love the belief in me, even when sometimes I doubt myself. And I love the partnership that you get with a coach where it's either support or challenge, depending on what you need. That really empowered me to really go for becoming a menopause practitioner. So what had happened in that part of my life was about 6-7 years ago, my patients, by then I'm family medicine, my patients had been coming to me, my practice had become a little bit more oriented towards women. And they were like, listen, I'm having all these symptoms. Like, I need help. And mind you, I know the black box wording is going away. So we're all very excited in this space right now. But I just want to remind anyone that's listening, I came out of training when that WHI study was what we went by. It was very scary to sort of unlearn things and to expand ourselves beyond the fear of harming, right? Because we were basically told HRT is going to harm women and we just shouldn't prescribe it anymore. So that said, my patients, would come to me and I thought, you know what, I don't think I know enough because I wasn't educated on menopause or had experience with prescribing HRT or any of that. So I thought, okay, let me send you to people. And you know what happened is we just kept hitting roadblocks. They couldn't find anyone. And I just eventually, and the coaching piece helped me, decided to become the specialist that my patients needed. That's literally what happened. I'm so grateful for the whole experience. And yeah, a few years ago, I completely flipped my practice and that's what I do. And so I have a private practice where I see patients with that. I work for a telehealth company. And then I also do professional speaking as well as coaching on the side.
I love that story because coaching did for you what it does for so many of us, for me, for my clients as well, is that it helped you step outside your comfort zone, your known kind of parameters of being a physician, and to step into this brave new world of menopause care. We need you, Dr. Gandhi. We need you because we know there's just a lack of medically trained menopause specialists in the
Uh,
world right now. And so I love that you sought out coaching to help you step into that space. And here you are helping women through this incredibly important transition. I'm curious, as you started working more deeply with women in midlife, what emotional or mindset challenges came up again and again for your patients? And I'm sure as a personal development coach, you saw those light bulb moments more frequently than your average doctor.
First of all, thank you for the kind words. I so appreciate the work that you do, Gabriella.
Oh,
And I want to definitely take a moment to talk about that because what you talk about and what you remind us to do is not talked about enough. To really prioritize our own pleasure, our own joy, to reset our nervous systems is so critical. And it's really critical for all phases and stages of life, for
mhm,
all people, even children. We are in a world right now where there is an onslaught of information, like to digest all day long, right? We're getting
mhm,
emails and we're trying to keep up with so many different streams and all this information, and digesting it is very difficult. And I think it comes to question, do we need to be? Because our nervous system, right, cannot tolerate that much. And that's why so many of us have anxiety, which we call stress, but truly it's anxiety. And there's no way to deeply connect with another, to connect with your pleasure if you're not connected to yourself. And I love your post because you are reminding us, take a moment, just do a few deep breaths, do these different exercises that were designed and developed thousands of years ago, some of them, right? And some are new. But really want to take a moment to really appreciate you and what you bring to this space. We need everyone here. We need
mhm.
everyone, all hands on deck, right? For
Thank
women's
you
health.
so much. Thank you
Of
so much, Dr.
course.
Gandhi.
Of
Thank
course.
you.
Absolutely. And just to go back to your question. So, yeah, I have to say the coaching and then the becoming a menopause specialist just happened together. Like, I didn't know that was what's good. It was happening, but it was happening together. So, it was wonderful, perfect timing, synchrony from the universe. But you know what I notice a lot in terms of mindset? I myself am in perimenopause. So, I'm here with everyone on the transition. We all just might be in different places and stages. But what I really notice is that there's a sense of grief. There's a
Mm,
sense of loss of self. By the time these changes start happening, right? We might be like in our late 30s even, or our 40s, let's say for most people. And by then, you've lived a life, a couple decades, you have a system. And most women are multitasking machines, right? We're socially conditioned and biologically primed to be this way. And so we're just knocking it out. And then these symptoms start happening, and you just think, I don't feel like myself, right? The universal, what's going on? Am I crazy? All of these things, right? We start to wonder. And then we think, okay, it was just one bad night because in the beginning, it's not very consistent. And then we
mhm,
start to really not feel like things are going well. And it can be scary, especially when you're so used to a certain pace and a certain level of functioning, right? And people depend on you when you're in midlife. If you're a parent, you have kids, you might be a grandparent. Even if you're not, you have elders, right? You have maybe your career, you've got a mortgage. We're in that sort of sandwich squeeze generation, right? Where we're juggling a lot. That's why we call it midlife crisis, right? So there's a reckoning, there's a reassessment of, hey, am I where I wanted to be? And then these symptoms start happening. And you just think, oh my goodness, my health, what is happening to me? So there is a sense of loss when you finally are able to put it together, or you are able, hopefully, to see someone who understands you, who validates you. Oh, okay, this is what's happening. Well, there's some anger, maybe. There's some sadness. There's some
mhm,
resentment. There's some just resistance. Like, why? No, I don't want this. I had a way. And so I think what really different mindset tools such as gratitude, mindfulness can help us with is reaching a space of acceptance and then non resistance, right? So, this acceptance, this grace that we give ourselves, like when we went through puberty, it was a major shift, right? You're waking up and you're like, I have hair here. I have this new body parts. What's going on? Like middle school, high school,
Yeah.
all that stuff. And the education piece, like how much were we educated about it? And then when it comes to perimenopause and menopause, most of us didn't get much at all, right? In terms
Mhm.
of here, you're going to get your period. Here's what happens, right? And most of us didn't get much. But I think that really is the key is accepting those feelings, finding a way to negotiate them, to feel them, to honor them, and then figuring out a way to move forward.
That's so beautiful. I recently had a conversation on the podcast with a writer. Her name was Anne Tashi Slater, who wrote the book Traveling in Bardo, which is this Buddhist concept of living in that in between state of life and death, but also rebirth. And part of that Buddhist philosophy I learned, and I had no idea about this, right? Before I read the book, I didn't even know about the concept of Bardo, but she talks a lot about how in Buddhist philosophy there is this attitude of acceptance, right? Not falling into this doom and gloom and crisis, but stepping into this place of acceptance, not resisting, but that knowing that change will happen. It happens to all of us. As you mentioned, the changes we go through in puberty, we're going to go through changes in our 30s, our 40s, and 50s and beyond. And what I love about your lens, Dr. Gandhi, is that you bring probably that, and not intentionally, right? That spiritual kind of philosophy of acceptance and meeting resistance and change, but also bringing in the science and the coaching aspect. These three aspects are so important and helping women navigate this transition. So, before we get into the science, I'd love to ask you, especially when it comes to gratitude, what has gratitude meant in your own life recently as a physician, a woman, or simply a human being?
I wanted to say thank you for that share. I'm going to have to read that book as well. I love that. And I think what I realize is the mind, the body, the spirit, it's all connected. And we may not even always have the words, but I think intrinsically, I think innately, we have knowing. We have a knowing as human beings. But gratitude has been a transformational wellness tool in my life. And I will tell you, I have stumbled and bumbled through my life, definitely fallen on my face, had to learn things the hard way. For me, I will share that I think I was in probably my early 30s. And I had just started working as a physician. I had two little kids, and I really thought I had nailed like my dream job. And I was just like, okay, wow, everything's looking on great on paper. I'm checking the boxes. Okay. I had a mortgage. I was thrilled. Oh my gosh, I could have a mortgage. This is amazing, right? So right on life's prescription list, I was like, okay, we're doing it here. But something was off, and I was
Mm.
like, what is going on? And it wasn't until I had this incident with my older child that I was shaken awake. Like woke me up and I realized, okay, whoa, something is very wrong. If you have all of this where, there are people suffering and struggling, some of the things that are happening in your life are things you dreamed of, you hoped for, and you're still not feeling good about them. What's going on? So I had a little incident. I had my little kids, and there was one day that I picked them up from daycare, and we came home, and it was time for the bath. So they were in there, and I was right there watching them, and I have two kids, so I had their towels and their pajamas, and everything was laid out, and the lotion. I was ready to go, so I'm watching them. And I remember as they were frolicking and shrieking, they were like throwing water at each other. They're having just a ball, just like two little kids should be. And I think my older one was almost 4. And I know for a fact the chore wheel, everything was spinning in my head. And I was like, okay, they're going to come out. I'm going to drive. We're going to need a lotion. We're going to have pajamas. We're going to go downstairs. I'm going to get him busy with a snack and get him doing something. I try to get a start on dinner. Okay. And then later, I'm going to have to look through all my patients for tomorrow. Blah, 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 blah. Like, woo, woo, woo. Wheel was just going. And my daughter comes out and I'm drying her. And she's, Mommy, Mommy, Mommy. And I was like, what? And she said, I want you to be happy.
Oh.
You to be happy, Mommy. Ooh, it was a dagger in my heart because I thought, Everything was under control. I was high functioning. Everything's getting done. I'm making them semi-organic food. Like all things are happening. And I was like, you know what? This is not okay. These little beings are obviously feeling all of my stress.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
felt terrible, right? None of
Mhm.
us want that. And so it shook me at that moment. And I would love to tell you, like, yep, then the switch flipped and boom, I changed everything and I just took off. No, of course not. I probably had done that thousands of times, hundreds of times, but I was seeking. So something did shift in me. And I remember catching something that Oprah Winfrey said, and she talked about keeping a gratitude journal changed her life. You have to remember during this time, we didn't use the word burnout. It didn't exist. For someone early in their career to feel disconnected, disillusioned, not aligned. We didn't even talk like this, and especially not in a medical community. So I just was thinking, gosh, what is wrong? Because everything is looking outwardly very good. Maybe I need to try this gratitude journaling. And believe me, I wasn't into woo. Would have rolled my eyes before that. But at that point, I was like, something is wrong here. And so I just said, okay, I like pretty journals. I like nice pens. Okay, so I'm going to start, right? So every day, every night, I jotted down at least 3 or more things that I was grateful for. And I tell you, that practice completely shift the way I look at wellness, well-being, health. It opened my eyes to so many different practices. And it is literally why you and I are talking about this today.
Absolutely. Oh, wow. I love that story that you told us. Thank you so much. I can't think of anyone who's a mom and listening, probably nodding. Oh my gosh, yes, I've been there. I know that feeling, especially when you're in relation with your children, knowing that you have it all and you have these beautiful humans in front of you and something is just off and you can't hide it no matter how much you try. These we learn so much. I always say my kids have been my greatest teachers, and believe me, they have called me out on some of
Mm.
my greatest kind of flaws. And that's what I tell them, right? I'm not perfect, and I apologize and I tell them, yeah, I can do better. These little people are just amazing teachers for us, aren't they?
100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely. They say there are mirrors. And
Exactly.
and then children, especially at their young age, they're just naturally more present. They feel their emotions and they express them right away. They haven't learned yet that they need to mask them or act differently in different situations. That hasn't happened yet. They can be the truth tellers. Oh, yes. Same with my children. I still tell them, okay, my 2 greatest professors and teachers.
So going back to this idea of gratitude, I thank you so much for sharing how you entered into that gratitude journaling practice. And I know you take an evidence-based approach to your work. So I'd love to explore what the science actually says about gratitude. We hear so much about how it helps us feel better, but what's really happening in the brain when we practice gratitude?
I love this question so much. If you go to PubMed and type in gratitude or whatever, science-based search engine you use, you will find a lot of information. And so gratitude is actually a form of mindfulness. We don't think about it that way, but it is. And mindfulness really is about entering the present moment without judgment or criticism, just being in the present. Most of the time, our thoughts are really focused on the past or the future. Very few of the thoughts, the impulses, depending on what you read, it's 7,000 or 10,000 a day that are going on in our brains, are focused on what's happening right here, right now. So, what gratitude does is it actually, when a person feels a sense of gratitude, it actually shifts their neurotransmitters, more so serotonin and even dopamine. And what is happening is that essentially those boosts help our mood, and our
Mhm.
mood affects our thoughts and our decisions 24/7, right? So, in that way, gratitude can be a very powerful mindset shifting tool. The other thing that gratitude does is it affects our circuitry in our brain, right? And so we have what we call our defensive circuitry and our pro-social circuitry kind of network. So the defensive circuitry in our brain is what makes you like notice fear, back up, prepare yourself for maybe some impending possible danger, right? And our brains have this what we call negative slant or bias, right? And that's evolutionary because it's protective for our survival. And that's something that we've needed as human beings. So it's a little bit more slanted that way. But what's interesting that what gratitude does through rewiring or neuroplasticity is that it favors the pro-social circuitry, right? So that's connection, altruism, positive feelings of happiness. So it gives you that shift. It even can help us reframe past trauma, which can help us with resilience. It can even provide sort of inoculation from future trauma by giving us context. So it can really be a powerful tool.
Especially during perimenopause or menopause when hormones and mood can be a little bit more up and down, like a roller coaster. How can we step into this practice of gratitude? I know there's fascinating research that shows story-based gratitude practices, like remembering a specific time someone helped you, those are more neurologically impactful than just writing a list, although I love lists, writing lists. Just for me, the act of seeing a word on a piece of paper staring back at me, I'm such a visual person, so that helps me. What are your thoughts on that? Have you seen this in your work in terms of which gratitude practices are more impactful? And maybe you can talk us through some of them.
Absolutely. And I really appreciate you referencing that because I've heard lately too that there's been a question about whether journaling is really as potent and as impactful. And there's some research that shows that actually sharing actually mutually, potentiates and the health benefits, right? If I share with you what I'm grateful for and you hear it, like you actually feel the health benefits of gratitude because you feel that from what I'm saying, which is
Mhm,
so
mhm.
fascinating, right? Like the sharing piece. But I agree with you. In my life, I have found, and from many people I've spoken to, that the act of jotting something down, whether it's that multisensorial, there's a book, there's tactile sensation, right? There's this engagement with you, the paper, the pen, your fingers, the thinking, all of that process helps some people. And for some people, they like to voice dictate it into their diary app, which is a great tool as well. So, what gratitude does in whatever way that you practice it, and we should probably say that having an active practice of gratitude isn't saying thank you when someone holds the door open for us, right? It's
Mhm.
really polite and kind, but that's not where we want to get in deeper. So, what's happening when you are thinking of moments in your day is you're having to become present. You're having to become mindful. And what's happening is you are thinking about what works for you. That becomes very obvious when you start keeping a gratitude journal or a diary. It becomes very obvious when you look back at the other pages, like, I really like spending time with so and so, or, I really like going for a walk. Every time I go for a walk after dinner, there's just something about that cool fall air, the crunchy leaves, whatever that is. I'm making it up, but you notice patterns about yourself, as well as when you notice what works for you, it becomes very clear who and what doesn't work for you. And during this roller coaster, like you said, of perimenopause and this major shift in the menopausal transition, that is critical, right? Because you don't feel like you're functioning on all tanks like you were before. Being very mindful of what drains your energy, what makes you feel good is very important. It can
Mhm.
help us clean up relationships where we've had the disease to please, especially for women who are Gen X or in older generations. We were definitely taught the disease to please. So unlearning that, not enabling anymore, making sure that your relationships are mutually about your growth and no one's being taken advantage of. So like I said, it requires us to become mindful. And there's so much research going back to your other question too about how it helps. It helps people's experience of pain. People are less bothered by aches and pains if they have a regular practice of gratitude. They feel like their sleep is more restful. Their mood shifts, right? Their perspective shifts. And so there's research, and there's a pioneer in this space. His name is Dr. Robert Emmons. He's considered one of the experts. Decades ago, his team did a study where they looked at people between the ages of 8 and 80, and they conducted this study on gratitude, and they reported so many different benefits.
And so, what does that actually look like in your practice when you're supporting women in this life stage, especially when it has to do with symptoms like anxiety, brain fog, or like
Yeah.
physical symptoms, like you mentioned, pain or insomnia? You say that gratitude helps with those symptoms. How do you guide women to adopt this practice, and how does it actually look like in real time?
I prescribe gratitude and other mindfulness practices just as I prescribe medication. It is
Mm.
one of the tools that I prescribe, right? For every problem or situation in our life, right? We have our toolbox, so to speak, right? We look at our resources, right? And so, for example, one might think of medications, pharmacological tools, supplements, right? We think of exercise. All of these things make sense to people having the proper nutrition. But stress reduction via mindfulness, that specific line and phrase is one of the tools that I prescribe to my patients in my practice, and we go over it. And my 3 favorite ones to prescribe, because they are all proven in science to help, is active practice of gratitude, right? So whether that means we are jotting something down in a journal, or we have a practice around the breakfast table or the dinner table with someone we love, and we're each sharing at least 3 different things, or maybe we have a gratitude wall or a gratitude jar, whatever that looks like. And then other practices are, of course, breathing exercises and meditation. Those are my top 3. And I have to say that my patients report back, you know what, Dr. Gandhi, when I started doing that, there's something to it. It helps, you know?
Mhm, mhm.
And so we have to remember, like, practicing gratitude is something that we've seen in many different cultures and communities across the globe for thousands or more years. There must be
Mm.
something to it if so many different people
Yeah,
practice it.
yeah. And you mentioned the practice of sitting around a dinner table. I just wanted to share with you and with our audience, without me knowing, I think, I did know at the time that gratitude was hugely beneficial, not to the extent that you've explained right now. But since our kids were little, or more teenagers, preteens, we used to sit around the dinner table on Sunday nights, and we would go around the circle and talk about our week, right? Talk about what went well, what didn't go well. And we wanted to instill with them this idea of gratitude. And so we mostly did it because we wanted them to express gratitude to one another or to each other, because even though it's hard to teach those teenagers to, really express gratitude towards each other, right? We wanted to foster this idea of, my family's here with me, and they're always gonna be with me, and they've got my back. And just acknowledge little things that we do for each other, however small. We started out with, who are you grateful for? And it didn't have to be family members, it could be a friend or a teacher or something that someone did for you. So it's they would always sometimes find trouble. Like, I'm not grateful for anyone. I'm like, God, someone must have done something
Yeah.
to help you out or support you or make you smile or light up your day. And so, I would make them think and become present to that feeling. And always they had, whether it was a sibling for sharing a toy, or a teacher for helping them out with some math homework, or whether it was, a lot of times it was me or my husband for helping them out. But it still continues to this day. They're all in college. We still have our Sunday Zoom meetings where we meet with them, and we always have this,
Oh.
okay, what are you grateful for? Who are you grateful for? And they still, I'm not grateful for anything. I can't think of anything. But then we're like, okay, come on. And we say, really? And they always manage to find something or someone. And I think it's such an important exercise because, and especially in a world where for our teenagers or for our kids, or even for us perimenopausal, postmenopausal women, when things just don't feel like they're going, you can feel like the world feels like doom and gloom, right? Nothing's going right for me these days. Everything feels terrible. What do I have to be grateful for? Really to take that moment to say, you know what? To dig in and really think, yeah, I have this one glimmer of hope and gratitude or pleasure that someone has shared with me that has happened in my life. And that really changes the energy. It changes the mood, especially if you're in a group setting or especially if you're just thinking about your place and where you are at this stage of life. So I love how you're talking about it. And thank you for letting me share that experience. It really works. I think it really works.
I agree. I think that is such a beautiful example, what you're instilling in your children, despite the eye rolls and all of it. And it's a way of connecting with each other.
Exactly. Yes.
I think that is so important. And I just want to also talk a little bit about toxic gratitude and toxic
Yeah, yeah.
positivity, right? Because we're in November, right? Which is the month of gratitude, and Thanksgiving for those who celebrate it is coming up. And I think sometimes we start to see gratitude on every mug and sweatshirts, and you should be grateful and you should have gratitude. And anytime you hear the word should, I tell people just back off right away. No one needs to should anything. And I just want to say also, you touched on how challenging midlife and these symptoms can be in general life at any phase and stage. But since you and I are more in this space, yes, it can be devastating for some people. It can be debilitating. It can cause so much anger, so much grief, so much resentment. And on those tough days, to be like, you should be grateful, come on, or turn that frown upside down, that's not okay. It is not okay to not honor your symptoms. It's not okay for us to skip the steps and bypass. We've all tried that. I've definitely tried it where I'm like, oh, I don't want to feel those yucky feelings. I'm just going to punt that over here and try to be positive. And guess what happens? It builds and it builds. And one day, all that bottled up stuff just explodes. Either you explode on someone who probably did not deserve it, or you internalize it. And we know that the body keeps the score. Repressed anger and emotions can make us sick, literally sick. There's a reason that 80% of all autoimmune diseases, they think, happen to women mostly. When I say this is not a blame, it's just this idea of just staying with the positive. That's not what this human experience is about, unfortunately. The human experience entails some lows with those highs. It's up, it's down. There's so much to it. And often these uncomfortable feelings are here to teach us and tell us something. They're like messengers. And I'm not saying I wish pain upon anyone and that it's anyone's fault if they are ill at all. By no means am I saying that. I'm just saying that we see these correlations, you know? So it's really important for us to give ourselves the space to feel angry, to feel really upset about things, and do what you need to do to feel those emotions, because eventually, shockingly, I know it's hard for me to believe sometimes when those feelings will actually pass through. They won't just stay there. And there's ways of doing something with that, right? You can journal, you can call up a friend, you can see your therapist. There's a lot of different ways of processing those. Once you do that, you create a space. And then it's what you said about the glimmers of gratitude, right? If you can follow that, you can actually climb yourself out of a nothing ever works out for me, doom and gloom, lack-based mindset into a what are my options? Let's get problem solving, a creative, more abundance-based mindset. But that doesn't happen by skipping the steps of feeling those emotions because they're there to tell you something. If we didn't feel angry or upset about something, we would never draw a boundary. We would never say no.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's where the journaling practice definitely helps to help you process those feelings. I think working with a coach has been life-changing for me, definitely in terms of helping me process feelings. we need an outlet for them for sure. And I'm so happy that you acknowledge that we need to feel the feelings. Let's shift into mindset a bit since you went into that. How does gratitude help reframe menopause as a time of awakening rather than decline or loss?
So when we can enter a space, right, after feeling the feelings and feeling just challenged and overwhelmed, if we can come to a space of some acceptance, actually gratitude can help you do that, right? If like you and I shared, we love the journaling part. We end up just learning about ourselves. The days that I actually walked after dinner, I was less bloated. I just felt better. I don't know, maybe I slept better. Was it that? It just gets you thinking. It gets you curious about yourself. It really helps you with self awareness. It just opens that door, right? And that's what helps with that shifting of the neurotransmitters and the mindset. All of that is happening, right? And so I think when you do that, you move away from the doom and gloom, this is the end, and a lot of the stigma and sometimes the narrative that we've received, not talking about menopause or getting older and no longer being fertile and not having that social currency, right? Which is what our messaging is what we got. Like after this time of life, you've lost your power. We realize, wait a minute, I'm just about to tap into my power because now I'm starting to realize what works for me and who works for me and what
Mm.
I want. We get to zoom out and really, this time of life allows us to look at our timeline and our health span. If the average age range of menopause in the US, let's say, is around 45 to 55, right? The average life expectancy of women in the US is around like 81. Could be longer, right? Or it could be shorter. So we start to realize, hey, having our health is a privilege. Being able to be on this journey as a human and being able to look back and look forward and appreciate what's happening in the present. What a privilege is that to be alive, to even experience that, to know ourselves in this way. And maybe this is the coach in me, but it's like, how exciting to look at the future with, wow, what are the possibilities? What do I want for the next couple decades? Where do I want to travel? What else do I want to learn? How can I turn that light that I shine on everyone else, all the care and concern that I have on everyone else, all the tabs that are open for everyone else in my life? How can I shift some of that and reprioritize myself, and reclaim myself and embrace this new version of myself that I get to create? You get to design a new blueprint. I love
Mm.
coaching and teaching this as well. This is an opportunity for a new blueprint.
Yeah, I'm listening to you speak, and I was just remembering something I read about, and I'm sure you can speak to this in terms of what's happening physiologically. We see it as a decline in hormones, the menopause transition, a decline in estrogen, right? A decline in progesterone. But I understand that estrogen has always been that hormone that women have that really gear us for pleasing and for serving others and for accommodating. And the fact that it's
Mm.
actually declining, we could see a silver lining there, can't we? I mean, yes,
Oh,
there's
yes.
hormone therapy to support us, but we're never going to get back to the levels that we were before. Can you talk to us about what's actually happening with that decline in estrogen and how we can see it as a silver lining or an unexpected gift?
I love this. Yes. So obviously the decline in estrogen for the most part causes a plethora of symptoms and it rewires our physiology. We do get set up for risk for different chronic diseases. We have many symptoms, right? So yes, we need to decide and what we choose to and want to do about those things and care for ourselves in the best way possible, right? And what the toolbox, so to speak, for you versus me versus any of the audience that's listening is going to be different, but it needs to be individualized. But there are silver linings. And I
Mhm.
tell my patients, let me tell you the most surprising symptom of the menopausal transition. And they're like, what? Because we go through all these negative symptoms, right? They're not fun. But one of the most surprising symptoms is liberation. Liberation from maybe not having periods. Now, for some people, it was maybe fine. For some people, having periods is debilitating, painful. Some people are anemic because of the amount of bleeding they have, and they contend with all the results of that. Not having to be concerned about your fertility. For some people, everyone has a different journey when it comes to fertility, right? For some people, it has been a difficult journey. They wanted to become fertile. And for some people, that isn't the case. And now they don't need to be stressed about, can I get pregnant again? Do I need to do this? Do I need to do that? There's possibly that, right? It also, really appreciated what you said about the accommodation, right? The nurturing, the caring, right? So we're biologically primed and socially conditioned, kind of be that way and play those roles in society. So, what it allows us to do, because we just don't have the ability anymore, we just literally do not have enough gas in the tank anymore, is that for us to, as I said before, to refocus on ourselves, to stop enabling, to allow others to take care of themselves because they
Mm.
probably can. And you can't pour from an empty cup, right? So if you're dragging yourself around and on nearly empty, you're really not benefiting anyone else and definitely not yourself. So it's a chance to really revisit the roles you have played in your current family, your family of origin, releasing people, releasing others. So it can be a really pivotal, potent time to really tap into your power.
Yeah, I love that. And I know from personal experience and also from working with other women that it can be difficult to let go of that conditioning, the
Yes.
conditioning that estrogen provides and that society. So it's not only estrogen, but it's society. It's our own family upbringing. And you talk
Yes.
about, yeah, it's a time to look at some of those narratives that we grow up with, but it can be difficult to let go of that and to prioritize you first and foremost. How do you help women step into that place of freedom and now it's my time now? When there are also things going on. We still have to
Oh,
support,
yeah.
for example, I have my kids, even though they're in college and away from home, there's still things that come up with them. So I feel compelled to help them and support them, even though, yeah, maybe they can figure it out on their own. But then I have more pressing needs like my elderly mother, right? Who
Mm.
really needs my help and I need to be there to help her. And I struggle with, okay, I need to fill my cup and support my health. I have my own health issues, my own life to look after, but I also have to look after my mother. And it's so hard to balance, right? This idea of finding space for yourself and freedom, but also maintaining that nurturing spirit that is so important to keep our connection with our loved ones and with friends as well.
Yeah, I think that's so important what you're bringing up too, Gabriella, because I just want to add to that. We who are probably in the perimenopausal and menopausal space don't really have role models.
You
You
don't.
and I, if I dare I say, I mean, we probably don't have that, our mothers or aunts or like people in the generations above us to say, hey, or to model our mindset and behavior on because they were raised very differently. They probably didn't get near, if we don't think we got enough education, forget it. So we're trailblazers in this space. I tell everyone if you are in the menopausal transition, perimenopause, wherever you are there, you are a trailblazer. You get to be a trailblazer, right? You get to model behavior that is different and more healthy for you and for others. And you're doing that for future generations. But that also, that's a burden, that's a responsibility. So it's how we look at it. Yeah, we don't have those people to call up and model a behavior after, but guess what? We get to model it for others. We get
Mhm.
to. So it's shifting into that we get to. And I think really what it comes down to, in my opinion, is having practices where you calm your nervous system down, which you are teaching us every day, practices where you foster self-awareness, which we know is so important, sitting with yourself, journaling, breathing, allowing that inner knowing, that voice to be louder than all the other thoughts and voices, tapping into that, into your intuition, into that voice that is your compass that we've all had, where there was that voice where that one was the one we chose to listen to and that led us in the right direction. We've all
Mhm.
had those experiences. To allow yourself to get more in tune with that, because we live in a very noisy world right now. There's so much stimuli, there's so much information coming
Mhm.
all the time. And I think the more that you do that, the more that your way forward becomes very clear. You develop a lot of clarity. You also end up living a life that's more aligned with you, and your relationships are deeply connected because you can only connect with people at the level of which you are connected to yourself. We hear this all the time, but it is true. You've got to really meet yourself where you're at so that you can truly be present and meet others where they're at.
Yeah, so beautiful. So for women who are listening right now, who are feeling tired or disconnected or overwhelmed, we've named quite a few practices. What's one simple gratitude you would recommend she try this week? Something that's just realistic and not time consuming and that's super accessible.
Absolutely. I love that. So we can actually do this right now on your podcast if you want.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's do it. So make sure that whoever's listening is not driving, right? We don't want you operating heavy machinery and driving while you do this because it's going to require that you close your eyes if you feel comfortable. So what
Mhm.
we're going to do is go ahead and let's get comfortable in our seat. That means we have to wiggle out some tension, roll your shoulders, stretch out your neck. Go ahead and do that. Make
Mhm.
sure your legs are comfortable, whether they're crossed or you feel the floor. Make sure your hands are comfortable. And when you feel ready, go ahead and close your eyes. And we're going to just do some nice, easy breaths. And this entire exercise could literally take 2 minutes, 3 minutes. And no matter how busy we are, we must prioritize at least a few minutes for ourselves. And so as you're doing your deep, your easy breaths and you're stretching out those muscles, I want you to place a hand on your heart if you feel comfortable. And we're going to, first of all, feel grateful for our heart. It's beating, keeping us alive, for how expansive it is. And we're going to use the beating that we feel under our hand to really give us the chance to connect with ourselves right here, right now. I'm going to invite you, Gabriella, myself, and our listeners today to take a moment to express some self gratitude. Think for a moment about something in your life that you are grateful for in yourself, a decision you made. Maybe you said no to something. Maybe you said yes, but a quality in yourself that you are grateful for in the last 24 hours, let's say. What is that? Maybe it's simply that you're taking this time right now to connect with yourself, to honor yourself, to prioritize yourself. And I want you to remember this before you go to sleep tonight. Remember this quality. Remember what you're grateful for in yourself. Later this week. And when you feel ready, you can open your eyes.
And roar.
Yes.
Yeah, so beautiful. I just noticed an immediate like softening and opening. I just was able to take this deep, big breath and just acknowledge, yeah, something that I'm so grateful about me.
Yes.
About me.
Self gratitude.
Yeah, that's so wonderful because I think, yeah, we often think about others and yeah, we want to think about others and what we're grateful about others. But yeah, what we're grateful about our own selves is such a powerful shift. So thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Even on the hard days when we're feeling low, emotionally shut down, or out of touch with ourselves, practice of accessing self gratitude is such a powerful one, I think. I've never I've never practiced that, Dr. Gandhi. I'm about the external.
The external, right?
The external. What am I grateful for? The life that I have, my partner,
Right.
my kids, my
Of
friends,
course.
everything. But yeah, really taking a moment to express self-gratitude. Although I did do it earlier in the week. I did express I didn't know that's what I was doing, but I was saying to someone, one thing that I did this week to show that self-gratitude is just acknowledge how I've kept showing up every week for this podcast. If you know the statistics about people who launch podcasts, you'll know that many give up in the first 3 to 6 months, but I'm now marking almost 18 months, coming up
Gosh.
soon. And I've shown up consistently every week.
Love it.
And I have to express some external gratitude. It's because of people like you, talking to people like you, guests who say yes to the podcast, yes to talking about these issues that impact women in midlife. So thank you so much for that. If there's one message about gratitude that you'd love every midlife woman to hear, especially during this season, what would it be?
What I would say is find what works for you. Like you said, a lot of the gratitude messaging that we get is about the external. And sometimes it can feel like it's a should and it's another chore to do. So find a practice that works for you. And if it simply means that you're doing what we just did, sitting there for a few minutes, breathing, connecting with yourself, and practicing self gratitude, that is fantastic. And we don't need to judge each different practice and how beneficial it is, because that's what ends up happening is we get stuck in the weeds and the minutia. Find what works for you because you know yourself. You have been in your body for decades and you have what it takes. You are whole, capable, and resourceful, even though it doesn't always feel that way. And I know everyone has different privileges, but you have found your way to be listening here and connecting with us here, and you will find your way forward. Have full faith, have gratitude for that.
Such a beautiful message. Thank you. So before we wrap up, can I ask what's one thing you're grateful for right now in your life?
What I'm grateful for in my life is that I took some risks, that I went for it. And what I mean by that is getting my coaching credentialing and becoming a menopause practitioner. It was a big risk, right? It was scary. I had so much brain fog. My goodness. I was like, did I just read? Because gosh, it doesn't feel like I did. But I will say I'm grateful for that because it has expanded my life in so many ways. Like you and I just had such a rich, beautiful, insightful conversation for me, I feel. So thank you so much, Gabriella, for connecting with me and offering this opportunity for me to be a guest on this fantastic podcast that you have. It's been amazing. Like my life, my knowledge has expanded in so many ways. And it all came from me taking the time using whatever opportunities and resources I had to align with myself and then ultimately push forward. And I think that's when that coaching piece helps, right? It helps us with that little boost and that nudge because we can talk ourselves out of things so well because of the fear. But that's when having that support, having someone, check you on your self-limiting thoughts can help you. And I just want to remind everyone that just because you have brain fog or just because you forget things or you just don't feel like you're operating at the level you did does not impact your ability to learn. And these next few decades can be some of the most creative and enriching of your life.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. So tell us, Dr. Gandhi, how can listeners connect with you?
Oh, I would love that. So yeah, I'm on Instagram, which is how we met, Dr. Gandhi _MD. I'm also on TikTok, same handle, Dr. Gandhi MD. Yeah, those are probably the two places that we can connect. And then I have a private practice. I also work for a telehealth company called My Alloy. Yeah.
Wonderful. I'll put all of those links in the show notes. And yes, we are meeting in the week leading up to Thanksgiving. So wishing you a very happy Thanksgiving. And to all our listeners who do celebrate a happy Thanksgiving. And yeah, take that time to express some self-gratitude. It's
Yeah.
not selfish. It's not indulgent. I can really, truly attest after just going through that self-gratitude practice, it is life-giving, so beautiful. So thank you for being here, Dr. Gandhi, and sharing this practice, your knowledge, your expertise, and your heart.
Oh, thank you. It was an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of Pleasure in the Pause. Want to help me spread more pleasure in the world? Please hit subscribe to the podcast and share this episode with a friend, a sister, or any woman you care about. Because when we share these conversations, we remind each other we are not alone. Together, we create ripples of empowerment and support that reach far beyond ourselves. Your support means the world to me. Thank you. Remember, your pleasure matters. The information shared on this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and is not intended as medical advice. Always consult your healthcare provider before making any decisions about your health or treatment. The views expressed by guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of the host or Pleasure in the Pause.